What we're going to talk about now is subjective margins. And I need to see somewhere in your plans the way in which you're going to get subjective margins. Now, I know that sounds a bit strange to you at the moment, or another word for it might be situational pricing. It's the extra value that you can get out of your business simply by positioning or targeting a particular customer situation. And I'm going to give you about 8 or 9 situations that you could target that give you subjective margins. Now, not everything you sell will be able to get subjective margins, but something should. Or two of you, if you had an assortment of 10 things, I'd be thinking that 2 of them would have a potential for subjective margins. So it's not everything, but it is something. And the more demand there is for that something, the more chance you've got of building a sustainable business. Believe me, you know, making a profit out of a business is probably one of the hardest things you'll ever do. If you can build a business and make a profit out of it, my God, you know, it's equivalent to winning the Olympic gold medal in my books, because it's such a hard thing to do. This thing I'm going to tell you about now gives you a really good chance of getting a business that makes money. So I want you to we'll look at this and then we'll go and try and apply it to 2 worksheets. So a couple of things, first of all, customers, what do customers buy? And we've hammered this a bit through the course. Customers buy benefits, they don't buy features. And when Apple launched this particular product, what they said is they didn't say 1 gigabyte of storage. Here's a MP3 player with 1 gigabyte of storage. They didn't say that, because you know what that is? That's a feature. What they actually said was 1,000 songs in your pocket. You see how I've got a benefit? You mean I can carry 1,000 songs in my pocket? That's me buying benefits, as opposed to 1 gigabyte. 1 gigabyte is correct, but 1 gigabyte is just facts, or it's features. People buy benefits. And if you go on a little bit more, so features is what a product does, but a benefit is what the customer can do with your product. And that's what you need to be selling. And if you can grasp this thing here, I think you're going to go a long way to building a really good business. And that's this thing here. People aren't looking for a better product. They're not looking for a better product with better features. You know what they want? They want a better life. They want you to explain to them by engaging with you that you're going to make their life better. And that's why I say that convenient idea is one of the most commercial innovations you can ever come up with. Take something that already exists, that there's already a market for, people know all about it, and just make it more convenient. Because you know what convenience is? Less time, less worry, less hassle. Am I getting a better life when I'm saying those things? Yes. And people will pay, this is the joke, people will pay for the convenience. And if you can get money out of just making something more convenient, you haven't had to invent anything. All you've been inventive about is making something more convenient. And so you give customers a better life. And once you give customers a better life, you are zeroing right into the customer need. So the customers are not really thinking about, you know, hunger and thirst. They're not really thinking about a lot of the things that you think that they're wanting to buy. They want to buy a better life. So if you can explain your product in terms of a better life, you're a long way down the track to actually building a very successful business. And a successful business, like I said, in my term, you're making 40% return on your investment every year, whatever you've invested, and you're paying yourself a wage that you would have to pay if you replaced yourself. That's the definition of a business. Anything less than that is some sort of hobby or some sort of slavery that you're working under. And so if you want to get margins, and we have to get margins, which is the difference between what things cost us and what we sell them for. We have to get those margins. And this is the great dichotomy of business, is that the customer has to get value and you have to get margins. They're almost diametrically opposed. For the customer to get value, what do they want? Cheap. For you to get margins, you have to go dear. How does it happen that we transact when there's diametrically opposed forces? Customers wanting cheap, you wanting dear. And the only way that we can create that gap, or as a business to cover that gap, is to understand the customer when they're thinking in terms of value. when they're thinking in terms of their situation. Remember my lady stuck outside her door with the 2 yapping dogs and full of 8:30 at night with the shopping, and you know, she was in a situation where $250 to get a guy to open the door for her was not an issue. And yet that poor locksmith was probably making $12 a key cut during the day. But every night he does the $250 call, and that makes his business work. Because in one of the products that he sells, which is letting people into their locked out apartments, he makes the subjective margins, yeah? So sell benefits, get margins. Let's have a look. Couple of pricing strategies. Make sure your prices look like they've been made by God, not by written on a piece of paper. Make sure that when people look at your price list, it's laminated, it's proper printed. You know, make sure it looks as professional as you can possibly do it. There is an exception for sometimes cakes and handcrafted goods. You can do that fancy writing, but generally make sure your prices look like God decreed them, yeah? That's why you see McDonald's, it's all sort of properly printed. You can have a token budget price, but only a token. This is how it works. You can't say you only want to sell reasonably expensive goods. You've still got to have a token goods, because someone will come into your shop, and if you've only got medium to higher price goods, you know what they say? You're too expensive. What I love to say, and every time I have a business, I always have a token budget thing. There's no offer, there's no assortment. It's just a one only thing, because then I'm able to say to them, what's wrong with that over there? Look how cheap it is. The problem, mate, is not my prices, it's your demand. You've got expensive tastes. There's the problem. It's not my prices. Look, a ham sandwich for $2. What's your problem? Of course, there's only one product at $2. The next one's $4.80, but that doesn't matter. I've got a budget token price so that I can counteract someone that says I've got expensive prices by saying, no, you've got expensive taste, because there's a cheap product. But you want the ham and you want the chicken and the avocado with the dill and the mayonnaise and all that sort of stuff. Well, that's just your problem that you've got expensive taste. So it's nice to have, for anyone that's selling anything, it's nice to have a token budget price so that you can point that customer and say, here's something we did. We used to do an egg starter, a cheap egg sandwich, and a cheap can of Coke, but everything else was massive margins. But we always had a token cheap drink and a token cheap, so that we could just say that. The problem is not our prices, the problem is your expensive taste. Kit and bundle as much as you can to add value. I'm a believer in this. Try not to sell your products in items. Try and think of, this is both a value to the customer, because customers usually appreciate the fact that you bundle up the tie with the shirt, the belts with the trousers. You know, try and sell people a kit. Have a think about what you're offering and can you bundle them up. It makes it impossible to break apart and see what you're pricing for everything. So you can usually sneak in a little bit of margins in there. And you're also giving customers that convenience. Oh, I see. No, like, you know, you can go in and map your itinerary, and some of you love doing that. Others say, just give me the kit. I pay $3,800 and this is my itinerary. Here's my airfares. Here's my accommodation. That'll do me, sign up. Because you're selling convenience in that bundle, and customers love that. Big Mac your products. Big Mac your products means don't go calling your products by their industry names. Give what you're doing a name that's not used in the industry. Make up a name, you know. We used to have our sandwiches we used to have, and we could have called them, salmon and lettuce with mayonnaise or something, but we would call it something like sensational salmon. We used to have bang bang chicken. We used to have luscious chicken. That was interesting. And in the end, we got a guy that did a whole lot of caricatures. So you can imagine what luscious chicken looked like in the caricatures. But an egg starter, and you give, so you don't say, here's the egg and lettuce sandwich, because the trouble with the egg and lettuce and mayo sandwich is there's a price comparison, isn't there? If there's an egg starter and there's an egg and lettuce, you're not sure that it's the same thing. Big Mac is just a hamburger made up of its various things, but they don't advertise themselves as a hamburger. They advertise themselves as a Big Mac. We need to do that. These are things we do by using just interesting names. And same with service. Instead of having quick turnaround service, make it the silver bullet something, or even, you know, what basic, premium, try and come up with, you know, gold, you know, that gold is that end, and silver and bronze, or try and give it a different name than just the basic industry terminology. What this does, it tends to just move your product away from easy comparisons with others. This is a really interesting one, and this gets used a lot, and we used to do it. We used to do a lot, and it's to do with decoy effect. And when you see what happens here, you'll understand that the popcorn is the right place to do it, because they do it really well. If you ever want to study this effect, go to there. So instead of offering a $7 large and a $3 small, which would you choose? Now, I don't know. If you want a lot of popcorn, 7. If you don't want too much, 3. But look what happens when I put a decoy price in there. When I make the medium $6.50, which one looks like value? Large suddenly looks value, doesn't it? Now, before there was no real value in $7 and $3. Now I'm sitting there saying, not buying the medium. I can, for large, like 50 cents more, I can get the large. And what they've done to you is they've just created a reference. The reference didn't exist. They should be charging 7 cents for this, because the cost of the popcorn is 3. They could be making 100% margin selling for 7 cents, you know, because popcorn is incredibly cheap if ever you can get away with it. And that's why theatres sell popcorn and nothing else. But isn't this clever? Now, I don't know whether this is clever or not, but this works. And we are suckers to reference. We love getting a reference. When we're looking at somewhere, what's the reference point? 650 for me? 7, give us the big one. Some idiot buying the 650 one. But they've set you up, haven't they? They've set you up. So next time you go and have a look at the popcorn, you have a look at what price they do the medium. The medium, they don't even have to have those cups on display, because no one's ever buying it. And you know what? That's what they plan. We used to have a decoy in the most expensive. You don't want to have, say you know that your customers buy, and this is in our last business that we had, customers bought anywhere from about $4.80 up to about $6.50 for sandwiches. That's what they paid. You don't want to have your highest price in the range that people buy. You don't want to make $6.50 your highest price, because that's in the range that they're happy to buy. You need to create an $8.50 product. You never have to sell that product, but it takes all the pressure off the $6.50 one. So they're going along and they see the $8.50, oh, it's a bit expensive, $6.50, I'll take the $6.50. But if the $6.50 one is your highest price, they might go back to the $5.50. Customers are funny things. They don't always want to buy the most expensive. That's why when you went and had a look at that wine list, there was a $300 bottle there. You know why? Because it made you buy the $60 one. If 60 was the highest price, you could get away with a 40. But if 300 was the highest price, guys, you're going to have to pay the $70 one. Because by pricing one product that they never actually have to sell, they take all the pressure off the price you really want to sell. I don't know whether you understand that.
That's so smart.
It's smart, but not only is it smart, it's what people are doing out there. And you know what? They're doing it to you guys. And you're missing it. And you know why they do it? Because they're getting margins. And you know why they get margins? Because then they've got a sustainable business. And that's what we're all trying to get. So it's simply the fact of playing on the mind of people that they want reference. When we make a judgment, we're looking for reference. And so let's create a reference. Let's give them a reference. Let's give them a really expensive sandwich that we never intend to sell. We don't care. And the joke is we used to sell the expensive one. I'd say, what are we doing selling that? I used to just put everything I could think of. I think it was Atlantic salmon, there was capers in there, avocado, there was some Himalayan grown herb. You know, I just kept coming up with anything that could go in here to make it sound worth $8.50, but I never wanted to sell it. I just wanted to take pressure off the $6.50 one. Because then when they walk out and the wife says, why did you buy $6? Oh, I could have bought the $8.50, I didn't buy that one. You know, well, I never wanted to sell them the $8.50. Anyway, this is decoy effect. You got to think about when you're pricing, don't go doing $3, $4.50, $7. Think about actually making one of those prices so bad in terms of reference that they buy the next one. So many deal with it all the time, and so many plans that you look at. You know, you look at the plans and you say, oh, that's the best value one. They've actually created that one to make that look good. So go looking for it. When you go looking for it and you're aware of it, you see it everywhere. So we need to use it. We need to use it in our planning. Okay, now we get into situational pricing. This is situational pricing or subjective margins. This is what I'm looking for in your products. Do you have any of these? Firstly, can you make something urgent? If you make something urgent, people are prepared to pay. You guys don't remember, but you used to be able to go to the, this is way before your time, and you'd have a reel of film and you'd put it in, and if you got it printed in an hour, you got it for, you know, you had to pay $25. If you come back by the end of the day, it's only $10. So they create, now it didn't cost them any more. Same stuff, same ink, same everything, but they got you because you were in a situation where you wanted something urgently and they knew you'd pay. And you know what? You wanted to pay it because it was more important to get it back in an hour than it was to wait till the end of the day. So sometimes you can create an urgency, and my recommendation to any of you that have got a service and you think your turnaround is 2 days, tell customers that it's 3 days. Say it's a 3-day turnaround. So that when they say, can you do it quicker? You say, well, I can, but it's a silver bullet service and it costs you 50% more. I can do it in 2 days, costs you 50% more. And you build in margins for nothing more than perception. Now, a lot of you think I'm being sneaky, aren't you? What I'm trying to do is build that fight that we have with customers. And you guys don't understand this yet. You think your competitors are other businesses. Your competitors are your customers. They are the people trying to screw you. You don't realize this. They are your enemy. Now, this is completely foreign to what I was talking on day one, wasn't I, Glenn? You were waiting for this. You know, the purpose of your existence is to do all those things for customers. But if you're going to make money for your business, and we're gradually moving through the course to the making money part, you have to see your customers as someone that you not necessarily need to rip off, but you need to extract value from them. And you've got to price things at a price that they're prepared to pay. Every time you take a lesser price than they're prepared to take, your business is suffering. Ultimately, that's a bad service for your customers because you go broke, you close up, they lose out on the service. And actually, they don't want that. If you ask them the day before, I'm going to go broke tomorrow unless you all pay 20% more, 99% of your customers say, oh, we'll pay 20% more because we love coming to this place. But you never, as a business, you didn't go exploring that extra value. So the customers are not going to volunteer. I've never had a customer come and say, your prices are too cheap, mate, here's an extra $10. No one ever did that. You know, so that's what this situational pricing is all about. Anyway, let's talk about it here. So FedEx do that. You know, if you want a parcel, it definitely has to be there overnight. And the reason they do this is because some agreements are called, I've done enough of these, time is of the essence. If the agreement has to be done by 5 o'clock on Friday, if that's what it says, if you don't meet that obligation, you lose the lot. You lose the whole deal and probably up for penalties. So how much, if you go down to the FedEx guy and you're running a bit late and you've got this thing that's going to cost you $10 million if this agreement doesn't get to the other party by 5 o'clock, is $280 too much? Is $500 too much? No. Because you have a situational need that to save a couple of $1 million in a deal, you need FedEx to pick up this thing, get a jet, and get it to Sydney and get it onto someone's desk. And that's what they built their business out of. They haven't built their business out of the person that is quite organised and sends it a week in advance. You go to Australia Post for that. And in fact, they'll delay it for you now, won't they? Australia Post have got this delayed service. They're getting worse, you know. Quite interesting. But if you definitely have to get it there overnight, you walk down to FedEx, they charge you some ridiculous price, but to you it's not ridiculous because if that doesn't get to Sydney by tonight at 5 o'clock, a whole deal is stuffed, you know. So they've built their business on subjective margins or on situational pricing. You know, I got that? So their margins then allows them to be profitable. Okay, next one. Self-esteem. Can you build self-esteem? Please. Guys, girls, those of you that are into fashion, please target self-esteem. I don't care what you do, target self-esteem. Self-esteem is a funny thing. If you can somehow give customers self-esteem, they will pay extra for it. So don't discount the thought that when they buy this product from you that they get group acceptance. So brand names, product aligned with the latest fashion, social causes or latest tech innovations. Align your products with things that people want to be esteemed at. You know, I heard when I used to be at David Jones, they said customers who were going to meet their friends for lunch would duck into David Jones to get that houndstooth bag, so that when they went to, this is when David Jones was a famous brand, when I used to work there, and they would go to lunch because they wanted to be seen to be shopping at David Jones, you know. And you know, that's an esteem thing. That's not, you know, they didn't care what they bought. They just wanted to make sure that they were esteemed that way. So think about that. Can you build self-esteem into your product? Think about it. A lot of this is just stepping back from your product and saying, can I do that? Is there some way I can do that? And that's obviously your exercise tonight. Pain relief. Can you relieve pain? Have you got customers in a situation where they've got massive pain that you can provide a relief to? Wonderful. You know, if any of you have been in a situation where your car's broken down and you call those RACQ, or my God, they are just like knights on shining horses, you know, or whatever they are. They are targeting a pain relief, and I think they have it. If you're not a member, you can pay a lot of money and actually become one. I'm not sure how they work it, but you know, that's a point at which you're not thinking about the price, and that's what subjective margins are about. Getting you in a situation where you're just thinking about the value, not the price. And if we can target our businesses, not all of our business, sometimes you can build a whole business on just subjective margins, but most of us are going to have a business that has some subjective margins and some ordinary everyday products in it. Fear mitigation. It's what you go for, you know, I hope there's no lawyers here, but every lawyer, every insurance broker is selling you fear mitigation. So they usually create the fear and then provide a product that solves it. But you didn't have the fear when you first went in. You went to see your lawyer. And they say, well, back in '86, there was a case, you know, where the guy lost his house because he didn't do something. Really? And then there was a time in 92 it was, yes, and they create this fear, you see. And then they say, but if you engage me at $300 an hour, I can solve that problem for you, yeah? These days, I just take the risk. But they give you fear mitigation. And, you know, a lot of these products that get sold to your home, they're fear mitigation products. They're not really going to solve, I'm pretty sure the burglar's going to get in anyway if they want to get in. But you're buying fear mitigation. I say every insurance product, most legal services, because what you're buying is peace of mind. And I'm telling you, this is a clever thing to sell. If you're going, someone said I did test and tagging. And I said, well, what you want to do is go in looking like you're a government official. You want to go in looking, and you go in there and you say, look, I'm here to check all your legal. Why? What's wrong? Well, you know, you can go to jail if someone gets electrocuted on a cable that, you know, is unsafe. You know, you create this fear and say, but while I'm here, I can go and test and tag all your stuff. Only $20 each, mate, just do it. Just do it now. Don't come back tomorrow, do it now. Oh, well, I've got a bit of time between my next job. Yeah, I can do it now, you know. You know, you've got to be aware of these things. You've got to be aware of when the customer's in a value position that's prepared to pay you above and beyond what is normally accepted prices. Another one, scarcity. They could produce 100,000 of those prints, but what do they produce? 100, don't they? And they say there's only 100 prints to get. And why they do that is because then they can charge a price for it, can't they? You know, what do you think? Why do you think you pay all that money for chips and beer at the football? You know why? Because it's scarce. Try and get it from going down, outside, across the road, out to the pub, hop upstairs, wait for the fries to be bought, come back. Meanwhile, you've missed the game, haven't you? So they've got you over a scarcity. Can you create scarcity? Is there a way in which your product creation that you can create scarcity? Think about it. It can be done. You can actually manufacture scarcity. You can actually, you know, this is what Aldi do all the time, don't they? Good luck trying to get one of their specials unless you're there at 8:45 on a Wednesday, because it's sold out by 9. Quality sounding name, we can all do this. We can all give our products a name that sounds like it's, you know, gold class, Royal Reserve, platinum service. Let's look for it. Look for it in your name. Don't just call it small, medium, and large. Make the large sound like it's, you know, got some value to it. I think the Starbucks use Grand Bear or something like that, some crazy name. But what they're doing, they're playing with some sort of fancy Italian name. You know, it's got some sort of, ooh, must have some sort of value. Think about your quality sounding name. You can get margins just on giving it a different name, particularly a quality sounding one. Please, high emotional experiences. That's why any of you that have been married, as soon as you said it's for a wedding, the price doubled. How come? Because the person knows they're selling to a high emotional experience. You only get 3 chances to have a decent wedding, don't you? Well, some people do 1, but the rest of us do. So you want to make it count, at least the 3rd one. You want to make it count. It's when it's wrong to check the price. Like I say, you know, special events, special anniversaries, all wedding products. It's built on a high emotive experience. Is anything that you do built on a high emotive experience? And, you know, that's where these photographers get you, don't they? You know, really they're just selling a piece of paper with some ink on it, but the ink on it happens to be an occasion that I sort of want to remember. And so they've got me because it's only ink and paper, which is 10 cents to them. But to me, it's in a moment when my daughter graduated that I don't want to lose. So I pay the $150 and have it in a frame, you know, because they got me on a high emotive experience that I probably not going to get repeated again. You know, that was the one time my daughter graduated, and so I wanted to be there. The one-shots, you know, any of you that are supplying to a business, and I used to know a guy that used to do the electrical for Mercedes launches. They paid him a squillion. You know why? Because they said, I don't care what happens, we will pay you whatever price you want, make sure the lights work. So he had an electrician, a backup electrician, and a backup to the backup electrician. And he was there too, you know. So he built his business around one-shots, and he became extremely good at it. But he got margins like you wouldn't believe. Basically, Mercedes said, we're going to get one shot to launch this product this year. It's worth so many millions to us. Don't stuff it up by having the light show not work. So we're trusting you. You send us your bill. We will pay it. Whatever it is, we will pay it. But don't stuff up our light show. So one-shots are really good. So if you're selling into a one-shot, there's a chance for high subjective margins. Service relating to opening or product launches or sports finals or entertainer or even Jack's last farewell. I think he's had 3, hasn't he? You don't know. Johnny Farnham. I think he's on his 4th final tour. So probably don't rush out and buy that ticket. But the point is, you know, at this point, you've got customers in a one-shot that are prepared to pay money. And you being stupid because you haven't thought it through are charging your standard price. And the customer is not going to say to you, you know what, you could have charged double that and I still would have paid. You should have been smart and savvy enough to have charged double that because that's what happened. We had 3 price points in our pub. We used to have a pub up from the entertainment centre. And I could just change by just going chick, chick, chick. I could change the price point. So if it was an entertainment tonight, we'd just go straight to 3. And we would be selling on 3. And no one quibbed because they were already blowing a lot of money on the ticket. And on the way down, they wanted to get a little bit excited so they could enjoy the show. And so when you said $48 for 3 beers, no one seemed to quibble, you know, because they weren't in the mood for price. The same price charged at 6 o'clock to my regulars, where did you get off, Pete? Because I didn't pick the situation. You've got to pick your situations and be prepared to chase those margins when they're there. If you don't chase those margins, your business starves and it eventually closes like so many businesses. Or worse, this is the worst business, the one that barely makes you a wage. That's the worst possible business. I wish the business would go broke so that you could go back and start again or go to another life. Being trapped within a business that's like you've invested too much to quit, but it's not giving you enough even to be a reasonable return on investment. So what I'm talking about tonight are the things that give your business the chance to break out of wages only to become something special. So it's going to go over your head tonight, but hopefully you'll re-listen to this tape in 2 years' time and you might pick up some things and say, Pete was right about that. I should have done that. Vital small cog. These guys, have you seen them running around? They sell hoses this big, this long with some ends on it. And you know how much they charge for that? About $1,000. The equipment itself is worth a couple of bucks, but you know what happens? When those big digging machines, having a good time, one little hose busts. Guess what happens to that machine? It stops. Guess how much that machine costs to keep going every hour, or how much profit it makes? 10,000 an hour. So when they ring up these guys and say, get here straight away, and the guy arrives within 3 minutes and said, I can fix it, it's $1,000, the guy goes, do it. He puts it on, charges $1,000, and the $10,000 an hour equipment gets back to work. You see, he's a vital small cog in something much bigger. Can one of your products be that? Is one of your products that? And these guys have built their whole business on just that, being on call. They charge an absolute fortune for a piece of pipe with a brass ends on it that they go back in and fit. But it's the money that they save in the machine that they're looking after. It's not the price of the goods itself. Does that make sense? So we're solving a situational problem which doesn't matter. I've always said, you know, you go into a hardware store and you spend half an hour with this guy that's been very helpful, not at Bunnings, but at other places, and they help you, and you end up walking out with $2.80 worth of screws. And I think, isn't that terrible? The guy has solved your problem, and what you've eventually worked out, what you need is this type of screw with this sort of washer, and it'll solve your problem. But he should have been charging problem solving. They've got to get out of selling merchandise, and they've got to get into some sort of problem solving. Hardware stores struggle for this. They're a vast range of products, and you know, hardware stores are not good businesses because of that fact that they waste a lot of time solving people's problems and don't charge them for it. And I reckon I would set up a problem solving department. And it costs you so much an hour to employ our people that problem solve, even if at the end you only buy a $3 product, because that $3 product solved your problem. You see what I mean? They're not targeting the problem, and they're trying to make money out of the $3 solution at the end. Good luck, you know. Doesn't work. Sentimental value, similar to high expectation, but, you know, photos of your daughter's graduation, because the product provides sentimental value. You know, they take photos. I went on this cruise to, where was it? New Zealand. Came back, and then there's all these photos of you staring at yourself as you're walking off. You know, and you sit there and say, well, if I walk off, I can't come back and buy those. And they were really wonderful memories. All right, $45 each, that's okay, you know, so pretty crazy. But they had you. They had you on subjective margins, and they printed them all out at, you know, 10 cents a pop, because they knew that they would, as you'd walk out, you couldn't ignore it. Indulgence, please. Can any of you build indulgence into your product? Is there an indulgence product in what you sell? Because indulgence, when you get into indulgence, day spas, girls, death by chocolate, if you go into a death by chocolate shop, which is those ones out there, Max Burners, you really aren't thinking price, are you? When you see what they serve you, you're actually not, because your head has already taken over on the indulgence thing, and, you know, $12.80 for a little bit of chocolate and something to dip into it, you know, the margins are there because of your want for indulgence. And so if you've got an indulgent product in your assortment, this would be the time to pull it out. So Hidden Valley Spas, wonderful day pampering, wonderful stuff.